Hello, Mike.
Oh, hello, Julian.
Oh dear, we are in a funk tonight, aren't we?
Mhm.
We're going to turn that mood around. Let's get Andy Green on, and he'll talk us through it with his NLP. He'll get you smiling again, quick as a flash.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Hoad.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
I'm going to launch straight in, Andy, and ask what guitar that is behind you.
That is a Paul Reed Smith Custom SE24.
And what amp are you using?
I have got an Amplify 75 amp, one of the Bluetooth jobs.
They're great, aren't they? I've got one of those.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
I've got a Fender Telecaster.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I've not had the pleasure of playing a Fender yet, but
It's good. So you learned before, and you're learning officially now, or what?
No, I bought a guitar actually after I graduated. I fancied having a guitar for years, like so many people do. And so about a year out, I bought myself that first Les Paul copy. And it sat there basically as a glorified ornament. And I never put the time in and was not disciplined about learning it in any way. And obviously we're talking ancient history here, 1994, pre-internet, pre-YouTube, pre-all of that stuff. If you wanted to learn, you either had to get a book of tab notation or lessons. And I had book of tab notation, but I didn't really go at it. I just dabbled, which is not what I usually do, because if I'm going to do something, I will usually go for 100%. But I just fiddled around, as it were, or guitared around. It's not a fiddle.
Guitared around. No, it's different from a fiddle, isn't it? I wonder whether you sang to it as well, or with it.
That's one of the other things I'm about to start doing is to attempt to get my voice to behave itself and actually sing in tune in a passable way, much to my wife's amusement, but hopefully that will work. But yeah, so it just sat there as an ornament until for about 7 years ago. And I decided that actually I really did want to learn. So I started getting lessons locally, and it was really good fun. I still have a weekly lesson in term times, and I absolutely love it. And it just gives me that little kick along. But it was about making it a habit to do a little bit every day. So part of my ritual is that in the morning before I leave the house or before I'm doing anything else, first thing in the morning, I will pick the guitar up and just spend 5 minutes on it. And before I go to bed, I'll pick it up and do 5 minutes on it. Now, that might be the only thing I do all day, or I might have done other stuff more on it at another time. But the key thing is that I always pick it up twice a day. It's absolute habit. I can't, if I get to bed, I get into bed, turn the light out, get ready to go to sleep, and realize I haven't picked the guitar up. I have to go downstairs and pick the guitar up, because that loop isn't closed in my head. And it's just, even if I literally just physically pick the guitar up.
That's a good idea.
And then put it back down again. It's making it, it's a behavioral prompt that's super simple and it's really achievable.
That's a really good idea. I have more guitars than I should have, bearing in mind the infrequency in which I play. And I really ought to do something like that. I ought to have a set prompt to do that. I've got a lot of things I'm doing with set prompts. That's the problem.
Does that not just prompt you just to pick your guitar up, though? Yeah,
Me?
like, I will make myself a cup of coffee in the morning. But
yeah,
how does that lend itself to playing more?
It's all about forming habits.
Right.
So to begin with, you need to have a prompt to do anything.
Right.
You make it until it becomes automatic, it becomes second nature. Get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. You don't need a prompt to brush your teeth, presumably.
Yeah.
It's just something that you do. You don't have to think about it. But for new things, because it's not ingrained, it's not automatic, unconscious to begin with. So I actually use physical written daily planning sheets, part of my time management system, which I find really effective. And on that, religiously every day is written, sleep is blocked out. And then the first thing after that is some mobility, stretching, and guitar. And the last thing on there before I go to bed is guitar. But I used to put Post-it note on my desk or on my phone or something that said guitar, just as a reminder to make sure that I've picked up my guitar and done that. And it takes a little bit of time, again, for any habit to embed, to become habit. You've got to do it for long enough, but also to then see the benefits, because it's also, it's you to test, I'm sure, Julian, it's a meditative thing.
I was going to, yes.
It's a mindful exercise, because when I pick it up and I'm doing that, I have to concentrate on it. And sometimes I will be practicing a particular little piece I'm starting to learn, and sometimes I'll just play a little bit of this and play a little bit of that. And it may be that the 5 minutes becomes half an hour. And sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's 30 seconds because I am late and I'm running out the door, but I'm still going to pick it up and go strum 3 chords, and then I'm done.
I do the same thing with Duolingo. So I'm learning a few languages at the moment. And it used to be that Duolingo would send me a little prompt every morning on the phone. It's time for you to do it. But now you're absolutely right. I don't need it. I just get up and it's the thing I do. And I don't quite panic, but I do feel uncomfortable if I haven't done it. If I have to rush out of the door and do something else, then at the back of my mind is, I mustn't forget to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to do it.
Yeah. And that's that positive intentional pressure to improve at something. And that's one of the secrets to mastery, is not having to go 1,000% eyeballs out, busting a blood vessel all day, every day to get better at something. It's just little by little. And that, as you start to improve and you find you enjoy it, then that's positive feedback loop. And then you don't, then it's, I rather than, I've got to practice, I really should, but it's so hard. It becomes, I love that. That was brilliant. That was so much fun. I can't wait to pick the guitar up, or whatever it happens to, or put the Duolingo on, because it's the path to mastery. And there is no shortcut. You have to put the time in if you want to get
it sounds like this isn't the only thing you've mastered. You're used to running that path.
It's one I've been using and practicing and getting consistently better at in most areas, not every area, but most areas. The last 20 years was when I first was exposed to some of this very specific personal development type theory and practice, these different tools, psychological tools, NLP, that type of thing. And that's been a huge part of my life for the last 20 years. My wife uses it as well. We've talked to our daughter. She uses it a huge amount now as well. She's off at university. She coaches and does things, teaches and does things like that as well. So it's that understanding that if you want to be really good at something, talent will only take you so far. However talented you are, that will only take you so far. It's the reason why not every super talented person gets to the top of their profession. Or if you look at sport, the hardest workers quite often will outperform over a long period of time the most talented people, because the talented people often haven't had to graft during those early stages. They've been able to coast to an extent. And then when it gets really tough and they can't get by on talent alone, that's a tough gig. And so, some of them understand that and they will respond. You look at your Roger Federers, people like that, who in the tennis world, for instance, who are immensely talented, but also work their behinds off. And then you've got a lot of players who, you look at Nick Kyrgios, for instance, they're outrageously talented, one of the arguably the most naturally gifted player of his generation, and has peed it away to an extent because he just doesn't have that work ethic. Now, it's always a bit more complicated than that. It can be a bit reductive, but that's why Andy Murray is such an inspiration, because a talented guy, but he worked harder than anybody right to the very end of his career to maximize every single ounce of performance, every single ounce of possibility out of his career and every single match and every single training session. That's a really inspirational example of where you can get to with the right mindset, because success is 80% psychology and it's only 20% mechanics. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't believe it's going to work, you're never going to follow through. So psychology, mindset, that determination, that focus, that bounce back ability, that growth mindset is absolutely fundamental to becoming a sustained success at anything.
So what happened in your life 20 years ago?
A couple of things. I got married, first of all, and I had jet lag, secondly.
Due to the marriage? Or because it couldn't do that?
Oh
Couldn't
my
do that.
God,
Yeah.
no. Because that was when you broke the land speed record.
Exactly. It was a little bit later than that, but thank you for noticing. I wasn't going to mention that.
1997, Wing
There you
Commander
go.
Andy Green,
Absolutely.
Thrust SSC,
Yeah.
breaking the world land speed record. And it's still the land speed record today.
It was 771 miles an hour?
Something like that. All I can say is that before the attempt, I had a full head of hair, as you will see from the photos. And now
Right,
look at
I was wondering about that because obviously the photographs that I've seen.
Yeah, I skied too fast. That was my,
Yeah.
and mine's.
Interesting. So go on then.
Mm.
So 20 years ago, because you said to just then, Andy, that sort of you started on
Yeah.
this track with the NLP and the training and the practice. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, did you gradually come upon this, or was this a moment in life that made you think, I'm going to have to do something about this, or I want to do something about this?
It was a classic example of what seemingly a really small and insignificant decision actually having a massive impact on the direction of the rest of your life in a very positive sense. So my wife and I had been away on a honeymoon. We'd been down to New Zealand and Malaysia. We'd had an amazing time, got back, and not surprisingly, jet lag. And again, this was back in 2003 when, again, we didn't have the breadth of entertainment that we have today. So at that time in the morning, I had cable TV, and the only thing on at cable TV at about 4 o'clock in the morning was the shopping channel. It was QVC, that's the one.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I turned QVC on, and there was an interview going on with this huge American guy with the most impossibly white teeth and massive smile. He was talking at 100 miles an hour. And his infomercial came on, and was like, watched it and went, whatever. And then watched a bit more of this interview, and he seemed like something out of a movie, because he was talking about personal development and personal transformation and achieving your goals and dreams and doing things you thought were impossible, and just this incredible stuff. And you think, well, obviously it's QVC, it's a sales pitch. And you're thinking, whatever. But he's very engaging to listen to. He was really a fantastic talker. And then there were QVC is live. So then they got people calling in, giving live testimonials. And you start going, okay, some of these are probably plants. But then you go, hang on a minute. There's people calling up going, oh, Tony, you saved my life. It was incredible. And people from random parts of the UK, and you're going, that's not a plant. Nobody's getting Bill from Warrington to call up to tell Tony he's a smashing bloke or whatever. And it's all these people just sharing these experiences, and thought, that's really cool. And he was talking about his latest personal development product, which is a C series called Get the Edge. Some relationships and goal setting and energy and health and all those key areas of your life. And I was like, oh, sounds interesting, but whatever. And Louise watched it as well. And then we went, oh, whatever, forget about it. What happened then was, over the next few days, it did not matter what channel we turned on the telly to, at what time of day, within 5 minutes at the most, that bloody infomercial came on for his Get the Edge system. After about the third day of this, I went, yeah, all right, I get it. I'll buy the system. Because again, it's one of those things where, okay, even once it's a coincidence, but it keeps happening. The universe is knocking on your door saying, hello, please open. Okay. So I bought this CD system, and I didn't know anything about personal development at the time. I had no experience of it. I had no frame of reference for it. My wife, considerably more evolved than me at that point, knew exactly who this guy who's Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, had read his seminal book, Awaken the Giant Within, had a fair bit of personal development experience herself, but was hiding her light slightly under the bushel at that point. I had no clue. So put the first CD on when it arrived, and we sat down to listen to this thing for an hour. And my life and my brain have never been the same since, because it was like someone taking the top off your head, sticking their fist in your brain and just gruddling it around, and then sticking the top back on and going, right, crack on. because it just opened up a whole world of opportunity and possibility that I didn't realize was there, really. And it spoke to something deep inside me, that I could be so much more than I had been at that point. Not that I hadn't done well at that point, but there was so much more there that I could do. And all the things that I never admitted to anybody I wanted to do or be, and sometimes, struggle even to admit to yourself, suddenly all of that was, oh, that's possible. The only thing that's limiting you is your own belief about why you can't have it. The story you tell yourself about why you can't have it is the only reason you haven't got it or won't go there. And it was extraordinary. And so went through the CD series, doing the written exercises and doing all the things from that. And that's also directly led to me having the job I have had for the last 20 plus years at Pennard Vets, because my wife was expecting a honeymoon baby and she wanted some stability. So I was fiddling around with setting my own practice up at the time and not really getting anywhere. And we sat down on a Sunday night, and she was very clear that she wanted certainty and stability, quite understandably, with the baby on the way. And I said to her, okay, I will have a job by the end of the week. And so I phoned up my best contact at Pennard's on the Monday, and I signed a contract on the Thursday, and that was directly as a result of putting into practice everything I had learned through the CD course.
Is that time-blind again?
So Sunday, I made the commitment to have a job by the end of the week. Thursday, I signed the contract.
Wow.
So was that to work at Pennard's? Was that work at Pennard's? Because you now own Pennard's, don't you?
Yeah, so I've been a director there for 17 years.
Right.
And so myself, Matt Flan, Caroline Collins, we're still the directors there. We did an employee ownership trust sale back in 2021, so 3.5 years ago. But I'm still one of the co-directors and part co-owners of Pennard's. Yeah, absolutely, proudly so.
So how does that work? Because the traditional model of the old senior vet handing down to the juniors over a period of time went out of the window when regulation was changed and
corporates could throw their wallets around.
Then the new tradition was that the old baby boomer, like him and me, would sell to the corporate, work out 2 years, and then retire to our yacht.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So in the midst of all of that, you've done it differently.
Yeah, I'm chuck COVID in the midst there.
It's a similar sort of idea to sort of John Lewis and Co-op and things, isn't it?
Broadly speaking, yes. We certainly had the option of the corporate sale, and some of those numbers obviously are very appealing. And as you said, there is the golden handcuffs element for afterwards. And for us, we looked at it and thought there has to be another option, because practice has been around 130 years at that point. And we very much felt like the latest generation of caretakers of the practice. And there's nothing wrong with selling to a corporate. There's nothing wrong with the corporate per se. It's horses for courses. There are good independents and bad independents, good corporates and bad corporates. It has to be what's right, but for the practice, the individual and everything else. But for us, we thought, because I'm 55 now, the others are younger than me. So it's not, none of us were looking at it going, we're clocking out now, as we're done with everything. We still had the passion to continue to drive practice forwards. But how do we secure that sort of legacy piece, as it were, as well? So we looked at the different options, and the employee ownership trust option became more and more interesting. And I have to credit Matt and Caroline absolutely with doing the hard yards on that. They did all the legwork. Obviously, I was part of the decision-making process, but they were the ones who really drove that. And for us, it worked.
What is the model then? What is the exact model on the practice ownership trust?
So what we did, so for an employee ownership trust to function, to be allowable, the shares in the business have to be owned by the trust. So minimum 51%. So for us, we put 7 or sold 70% of our shares into the trust
Mhm.
for us, and we retain 10% each. And that cost is then repaid over whatever period of time is realistic and reasonable for the business, because obviously it has to come from applicable funds that's generated within the business sustainably. So it's very much a delayed gratification in comparison to your corporate sale, obviously, where there's generally a lump of money on day one, and then you've got that earn-out, usually with incentivized for performance over those 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it happens to be.
Mhm.
So that's an important part of it for those who are going EOT, is there is the delayed gratification in terms of payout. You have to be patient. The key thing from the team's perspective, and again, really the 99% of our team, the only thing they were really focused on was the fact it kept us independent. Because a lot of the practices around us had sold, particularly one quite nearby had sold a few months before.
And I used to work
been
at.
very staunchly independent. There you go. Always
Years
very
back.
staunchly independent, and basically the rumor mill was going into overdrive of not if, but when were we going to sell, and we were getting so many questions all the time, as I'm sure you guys did as well in your time. And so for the team members, that reassurance that we were going down the employee ownership trust route, so we would retain our independence, was the thing that they were really focused on.
Has it helped retain the staff as well?
Oh, absolutely. From retention, but also recruitment, because again, the largest EOT practice in the country, still, as far as we're aware, we're the largest EOT practice in the world. So we have a unique place in the veterinary landscape, because there's still not that many EOTs. There are 1 or 2 more over the last year or so, which is great, but we're still there as very much front and center. And when we went to the EOT 3.5 years ago, we were about 80, 85 people on the team altogether across 6 sites. We are now about 180 people across 8 sites.
Wow. Gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. And when it came to recruitment, again, particularly in the current market, the marketplace has been over the last 2 or 3 years. You both know very well how challenging it has been sometimes to find a vet, find a nurse, and not succumb to the got a pulse and a qualification, will take them, but actually wanting to make sure you're recruiting someone who's aligned with your culture and values and is going to maintain that level of quality. But so for us, that really was a particularly unique selling point, along with then that's backed up by our culture, our values, the team engagement piece, the team being a key part of the brain's trust of how we take the practice forward, internal innovation, all of those things. So that's been really successful. And was it the year before last, I recruited 17 vets in a year.
There aren't 17 vets around in a year.
I was going to say that's more than I recruited in my lifetime.
So it becomes that virtuous circle of, once you get the first couple, then there's a narrative there, and then you've got momentum. And for us, it was never about, oh God, we need to recruit 17 vets. And that wasn't because we had 17 vets leaving. It's because we were expanding our team massively to cope with all the work that was coming our way and new sites. But again, it's one of those things of, if you set yourself it might be a health goal, or in my case, a recruitment goal, 17 vets, that's a scary old number, because you go, where on earth am I going to find it? You're not trying to recruit 17 vets. A bit like you're not trying to lose 3 stone all at once for somebody who's looking to improve their health, for instance. You just got to find 1 vet. You're just trying to recruit 1 vet. You're just trying to lose 1 pound.
Yeah.
Because after you've lost 1 pound, then you can lose the next pound.
Makes sense.
Then you get the next vet. And then you've got some momentum. And the belief starts to kick in. It's a positive feedback loop, because it also feeds in for the team as well. Once that narrative is there around, oh, we've got somebody new coming, that's fantastic. Oh, and there's another one. Oh, and another one. And suddenly once you're showing people around, then the energy and the atmosphere around is just, of course they join the team, but they'd be mad not to. And again, it sells itself to an extent because the culture is the people.
Absolutely. Very dynamic, I would have thought. One
Yeah.
new vet every 3 weeks, isn't it? That's quite amazing.
Oh no,
So-
not another new vet. Oh, come on, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get some
Lay it
old
off.
ones in.
Yeah. And again, it was, as ever, it's the whole team. It's a whole team process, which is lovely.
And are other members of the team and the directors also into the idea of NLP or Neuro-Linguistic Programming, isn't it?
Yeah. Indirectly, yes. I'm the only one on the team currently who's actually trained and certified in NLP. But NLP, like so many things, it's a framework. And there are various tools and things for particular situations, but it's a way of presenting or representing and thinking about the way that we interact with ourselves, we interact with the world around us and with the people around us. So it's one of the tools that I use when it comes to coaching and mentoring people, when it comes to communication skills, when it comes to strategy and things like that, because it's all about finding the right tool for the job. And again, if you've got a toolbox and you've got one tool in it and a hammer, then everything's a nail. But if you're trying to put a screw in, that doesn't work very well. You need a screwdriver unless you're really strong. So it's about understanding that for me, when I'm using those tools, it's about helping people understand that they have more choice than they think they do when it comes to the approach to a certain situation, trying to solve a problem, dealing with a tricky situation, managing people, managing clients, running to time management, anything like that. There's lots of ways to get to your destination. And the more options you have, the greater flexibility you have, the more likely you are to get there.
And you mentioned mentoring. It's not just the practice, is it? You mentor as one of your other jobs. If I could bring it down to
yes,
as simplistic as that, one of your other jobs. And it's more than just that, isn't it? So you have a whole different business, separate business.
Yes, yeah, that I set up a few months ago. I've done various sort of pro bono mentoring coaching for friends, for family, for acquaintances, with various connections for many years now. And I've always found that tremendously rewarding because I love teaching, I love helping people. And so I did it for free for a long time. I used it a lot, obviously, in the practice, but there's nothing wrong with that actually being paid also for something that you really enjoy doing. See, most vets, for instance, for me, it was as a step back from an operational role at Pennard Vets. It was the opportunity then for me to really step into that space and really put more focus on something that I've always loved to do. And I've always wanted to do a lot more of, but not felt comfortable with doing that. So again, part of my journey and my process has been actually, again, clearing away those limiting beliefs around who's going to be interested in what I've got to offer, for instance. And the more you do, the better you get.
So battling the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, imposter syndrome is one of those things that if you have imposter syndrome, congratulations, you're human, and we all have it. At some point, anybody who hasn't will.
Or they're not pushing themselves, or
they're not pushing themselves. Or yes, there might be something else going on. But yeah, for the vast majority of people in the Western world, then particularly with a striver, driver, achiever type mindset, high personal standards, that type of thing, then imposter syndrome is a very real thing. Basically, what is just being human? It's that little voice in your head that says, "I don't think you're that good, and I don't think you can do it." And that voice is always potentially there, but we can drown it out. We can scratch that CD, scratch that record so that it doesn't play properly. And actually that means we can listen to the more compelling and appreciative voice that says, of course you can do it. Absolutely you can do it. And you need to work at it. Okay, crack on, get going. If you fall down, get up again, learn. Failure is part of learning, it's feedback and all of those things, which I know sound a bit cliched, but actually there's a lot of truth to them.
There's a reason certain things are cliched, isn't there?
Yeah, it doesn't make them untrue.
As Peter Cook always used to say, I've learned from my mistakes and I can repeat them at any time.
Yes, absolutely. That's oh dear old Cook.
Good old Peter. And we've quoted many a time, haven't we, the Peter Good and Dudley Moore sketches in our meetings together.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
brilliant stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
go on.
I was gonna say, I know that Mike is keen that you should consider doing a little task for us.
Well, yeah, I was wondering, Andy, whether you've come across 60-second CPD.
I have now.
Oh, that doesn't bode well, does it?
No, it's something that obviously the two of you particularly pioneered that. And I love the concept.
You've come across the 60-second CPD challenge. So are you up for this then, Andy?
I absolutely am. Now I am very organized. I have my 60-second timer set.
Oh, I've got my 60-second timer set here.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
so there we go. So what do you, Andy Green, what is the subject of your 60-second CPD?
Now, just to be clear, my 60 seconds going to start when I start saying this or after I've said this?
Oh, it's going to start when I hit the button.
Yeah.
So okay.
This is going to be a crammed 60 seconds, isn't it?
Okay. Mine is the top tip for getting the best consult experience for you and your client.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. So, Andy
Here
Green.
we go.
Andy Green, 60 seconds on the best way of getting your best clinic experience for you and your client, starting now.
If you want to get the best out of your consult, if you want to enjoy your consult as much as possible, more than you have before, if you want your client to be fully engaged and really gain rapport with you and get the best from them as well, you need to be fully present in that consult room with that client. What I mean by that is you can't be thinking about the consult you just did. You can't be thinking about what's to come, your big long list of phone calls you've got to do, because then you are distracted. You are not fully present. That is also very stressful. If you focus purely on the person in front of you, once that consulting room door closes, they are the most important person in the world to you. Their pet is the most important pet in the world to you. You focus 100% them on what they're saying, on how they're saying it, on what they're not saying, their body language, excuse me, and focus on that. You will get a much better result. You will find more, you will hear more, you will learn more, and you will communicate better.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Done. Brilliant.
And apologies for the early alarm there. I was premature in setting off my timer.
No problem.
Just went off in my hand, Governor.
What's a bit of premature between friends? No problem at all, Andy. I think that's excellent. And actually, it is quite true. And I think I certainly always try and do that. You bear in mind, not only is the person paying a fair whack of money for your time, but also for them, it could be the most stressful thing that's happened to them that day, that year in their life. These are their most important people, their pets. And so we need to give them that absolutely 100% attention. Not least of which they could say something that might be useful to us.
Well, there is, I mean, shock horror, it does happen sometimes.
It does.
Yeah.
I can remember a client telling me something useful once in the history. I'm sure they've done it more than that, but I can remember it once.
It's normally when they walk out the door, though, isn't it?
Usually, yes. Oh, by the way, it's been going on for a week.
Yeah.
Ever since he ate that rubber ball.
Yeah.
You might want to come back in. I'll have another little chat, actually. Sure.
Is there a tip that you can give? Because let's focus 100% on what we're doing and the people that we're with.
Mm-hmm.
But there is so much going on in the world and there's so much going on in our heads. Mm-hmm. Is there a tip that you could offer the listeners to help get them to focus? So when that door closes, It is them, the client, and the pet.
Yeah,
What is it?
absolutely. Foster an emotion and an energy and an approach of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really curious about that person, about what they're going to say about their pet, and you're interested and curious,
Mm-hmm.
again, it takes your focus away from yourself and everything you've got to do and 100% onto them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever had the conversation with somebody who's really listening to you, like properly listening, as opposed to the usual interaction where one person's talking, the other person is listening, but actually what they're waiting to do, they're lining up what they're going to say. And once this mouth stops, their mouth starts. Two blokes in a pub when having a conversation, when the beer's at my mouth, you talk. When the beer's at your mouth, I talk. That kind of level of interaction is typically what most people do.
It's
Right,
what
and that's
Mae
just habitual.
Martin, the comedian, calls that the snow globe effect. It's great. I've got a snow globe too. Look at my snow globe.
Yeah,
But look at my one. It's exactly that, isn't it?
absolutely.
Mm.
So that for me, I love that curiosity. And the question that goes along with that is, what don't I know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because we may well have, on the basis of the client, the patient, the age, breed, and sex, and species of the patient, what it's booked in for, we may have made a presumptive diagnosis before they've even walked in the room, or they've walked into the room and you've looked at them and gone, cruciate, or whatever it happens, dysplasia, or whatever it happens to be, vestibular, or something less vaguer than that, but still pointing you in that direction. Or it's probably colitis, for instance, type of thing. None of those kind of judgments.
Mhm.
Then the challenge, and let's face it, a lot of the time, particularly as you get more experienced, you're probably right. The danger in that is the prejudge, and therefore not listening properly and not being fully attuned for the one thing that actually means it might be that, but you've missed the biggie.
Yeah.
And you've not picked up the fact that this dog has a splenic tumor that's bleeding, or whatever it happens to be, or you've missed the mass, the perianal mass, or you've missed the horrendous mouth, whatever it is, or that other thing, that crucial piece, as you said, that crucial piece of information the owner gives you. But they only give that to you if you actually ask the right question, and if you're listening well. And not be, this is the other tip I would give, don't be afraid of silence. Because most of us are very uncomfortable with silence in that situation. Very well done, fellas.
Thank you.
There was a silence off there. But you ask a question and the owner gives you their answer. And sometimes that's all you need. But sometimes it's what they think you want to hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you leave it space, and somebody's going to fill the space. Let it be the owner.
It's usually, isn't it, us as the interrogator in the nicest possible sense.
Mm.
The interrogator, it's normally the interrogatee that feels the need to fill that void. And it's a very powerful tool. I absolutely agree. And it also gives you time to think, what am I going to ask next?
Yes. Which is obviously also where a stethoscope comes in very handy. If you want thinking time, then new graduate, you very quickly learn the stethoscope is your friend. If you're not sure, put the stethoscope on, have a really good listen.
And so is the thermometer. I've noticed more clients shut up when you put the thermometer in their dog's bottom than when you put the stethoscope against the chest. They'll often keep on talking. And then when you look up and say, I'm sorry, they say, oh, sorry. You put the thermometer in, there's a...
Yes, absolutely.
So do you use a trigger to put yourself into that state? It could be the sound of the door closing. I'm now 100% focused, or...
So it's a really good question. And although I've not been clinical for a little while now, 27 years of clinical work provides you with plenty of practice at that. And again, for me, it became so automatic that I never had to think about it. The conscious trigger for me, there were two things. It's having a specific outcome for your consults. I had the same two outcomes for every consult I did. Didn't matter what whether it was a new puppy or the euthanasia, didn't matter. That was that I wanted that client to leave the consulting room happier and better educated than when they came in. And by happier, I didn't necessarily mean smiling, laughing, joking. They might be in tears because they've had a euthanasia. Happy is they are at peace and comfortable and confident that the right decision has been made for what happens next for their pet.
Yes. Happiness, that there should be content, shouldn't it?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. For me, the word was happy, but it had loads of meanings. You're absolutely right. But again, so that's also a really good trigger for reminding you that for that to happen, your focus has to be on the client. You can't be in your own head. If you're in your own head, you're not operating on all cylinders. Okay. If you're in your head, it prevents your heart from connecting. If you want to be slightly more esoteric and spiritual about it, that heart-based connection, that emotional connection, empathetic connection, that is not an intellectual process. That is an emotional process that comes from that splanchnic nerve plexus, that second brain in your gut. That's where that comes from. So again, it's all of those little triggers and those little hints and tips to help do that, particularly for new grads, recent grads who are a little bit anxious, a little bit worried. They've got bajillion differentials fizzing around in their head. They've read up on knows how much the night before because they want to be super prepared for it, and then wonder why the client, they got all this information, they contribute, they communicate all this information, the client is not happy. Why is that? So because it's been a technical exercise. They are not a problem to be solved. They are a person and a pet to be embraced, to be shown love, to be shown concern, consideration, rapport, to make sure that we're seeing things from their perspective, and then to walk that path together. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration.
Yeah, and the biggest complaint the clients have in those situations is the vet didn't seem to listen to me. They seemed to know the problem or my pet better than I did. They didn't listen to what I had to say. And it's absolutely that. It's the listening that's so important. It's active listening. And also it's making sure that the owner is content and has taken things on board without necessarily saying in a very repetitive way, did you understand what I said? Because that can be not repetitive. It can be very unfortunate, can't it, for the owner to go away thinking the vet didn't think I was intelligent enough to understand my dog has fleas. And that's something that comes with experience, or rather that can come with experience, not always, but can come with experience. And it's difficult to teach a new grad. But I think your 60-second CPD will teach a new grad and very experienced vets to get more out of their consults. So thanks for that.
I appreciate that. And it's an interesting one because I have found that even with a more experienced vets, one I can remember from a particular situation, and not from my own practice, but they were very technical vets. They were very process orientated, detail, number specifics, data analytics, proof. And they were pretty comfortable that they were good in the consult room. They got good outcomes. I was like, great, just go away, try this stuff and come back next month and let's see how you get on, see what it does. And he came back to us and said, that was really interesting. He said, I have had far more handshakes per consult in this last month than I ever had before. And that was his metric for measuring how well he was doing. And he will have had a spreadsheet with the handshakes on it, I'm pretty sure. But it was a really interesting piece of feedback from somebody who was pretty confident that they were doing just fine, thank you. But okay, I will conduct a trial. I will see how this works and I will assess the feedback. And that was his feedback, was that actually it made a significant difference and in a surprising way.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Contentment there is evinced by a handshake. You can get some clients though who there's nothing you can do, and they will always leave either truly discontent or apparently discontent, and they're impossible to read. And so I think it's important for anyone listening and to realize that you're not going to please absolutely everybody. And like my first boss said to me, to Julian, you're a nice guy, clients will like you, but there'll be one or two that don't. And if it is more than one or two, then you've got a problem. If it's only that one or two, then don't beat yourself up about it. So I said, is that per hour or per day? And he said, okay, I think we need to have another chat.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Again, none of this is ever about being perfect, because perfection is just an illusion. This is about doing the best you can with the resources you have accessible at the time. And we all get it wrong sometimes. Goodness knows I've made some big cock-ups in communication at times and consults, and that you've lost that client at some point in the conversation, and you just can't seem to get it back. Or as you say, and sometimes you've got to put your hand up, and actually on reflection afterwards, once we've climbed from our huffy hen spot going, that client was a complete idiot. Again, it's the honest look in the mirror and go, what was my contribution to that situation? What could I have done differently, better? What should I have not done? What can I learn from that for the next time? Because it's usually you look at it and go, okay, they really wound me up. They've wound me up, and I think they were rude and this, that, and the other, which may be very valid. And yet there's probably still something that we could have done better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Equally, there is the odd person who is just a fill in the blank, and they will be a fill in the blank to whoever is in front of them. And sometimes these people are trainable, because again, one of the games that I used to play with these situations to stop myself going into reaction, which is when we start to get emotional hijack, and then our IQ goes down the toilet. Because when your emotional intensity is high, your access to your prefrontal cortex is limited.
It's reptile
because you're in an
brain
emotional
entity,
hijack reaction.
Yeah.
100%. And that does no direct communication with your language centers, which is why when we're really angry, we can't argue our way out of a paper bag. And the witty, devastating put down comes to us about 2 hours later when we calm down. And you go, I'll remember that for next time. And next time, exactly the same thing happens, because when you're in hijack, you can't remember the witty retort.
Yeah.
So it's keeping yourself out of reaction and just remembering that, okay, are we fighting a battle, or are we fighting a war? Or are we not fighting at all? Actually, again, it comes to the, what don't I know? Because sometimes that person who is being a complete fill in the blank in front of you, it's not you. It's not your receptionist. It's not the nurse. It's not whoever's in front of them. It's all the other stuff going on in their life. And they've hit breaking point and threshold. And being in front of you is the thing that's tipped them over the edge.
Yeah.
And how often has that happened? And subsequently, you find out that they've, God forbid, some close relative has just passed away, or they're going through a divorce, or somebody's seriously ill, or they've just had some awful piece of news, or they've got financial work.
Absolutely. Any of those, anything could have happened.
The consult room is like a professional. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know their story. We've absolutely no idea, which is even then more important for us to be the most important.
Yeah.
For them to be the most important part of our day. And they must see that, and they must feel in a safe space. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying as calm as we reasonably can.
Yeah.
So that we're not reacting and showing empathy.
Yeah.
And actually sometimes just saying sorry, because they may be legitimately peed off and something hasn't gone right. And you go, do you know what? You're absolutely right. That shouldn't have happened. I absolutely apologize. And that tends to stop it dead, because what they're expecting is a fight.
Absolutely.
But actually go, do you know what? You're absolutely right.
It's very difficult
thank you
for them
so
to remain
much
angry
for
at that.
telling us that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And they come in
Yeah.
sometimes expecting that they've had a previous bad experience, or they've got a quip about a
Mhm.
bill, and the best you can say there is, "I'm terribly sorry. Have we mucked up somewhere? How can we help? How can we get this move forward?" Thanks. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that we reflect on these things later. I think it's all awfully important to reflect, particularly with CPD,
Yeah.
because if we're filling in now
Yeah.
our 60-second CPD, our one CPD, our CVS app,
Yeah.
we have to include reflection on that. So do you have any reflection questions or comments?
Yes.
Good.
Would you
We'll
like to share
move
it
on
with
then.
us, Andy?
I thought I'd just try and pause them. So
we're
no,
not playing that game
absolutely.
again. We've got a clock
No,
running.
no,
You're not
no.
going to play that game where we both sit there
Yes.
quietly.
I've only done that safe in the knowledge that this is not live and it's going to be edited. So
That won't be
yeah,
edited
I
out.
think excellent. I think reflection is so important, and I was talking about being mindful, being fully present, being really focused on the person in front of you rather than yourself. And I think for us in our profession, we are uniquely privileged in that we get to have the opportunity to positively impact multiple people's lives every single day through what we do. And you've only got to look at the cards, the flowers, the chocolates, everything else, the reviews that come through, the gratitude that's shown by our clients to us and our teams for what we do every day. We need to appreciate that, because obviously sometimes in the hurly-burly of the day, and it's stressful and you're tired and maybe something's not going to plan, it's easy to lose sight of that. So for me, one of my core reflective questions is really simple, is what can I be grateful for in my life right now? And something that's a really good, again, one of those habits to get into. Simple habit every morning. What are 3 things I could be grateful for right now?
Mhm.
And that can be really simple things. And it doesn't have to be anything to do with work, but it very well might be. It's like, actually, I get to go to work and, have that amazing interaction with people and their pets. I work with a great team. I really enjoy my practice. I love the funky tools I get to play with. My boss is really nice. It could happen. It's anything like that. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for the opportunity to do whatever it is I like to do. I'm grateful to have a guitar. I'm grateful to be standing upright and walking around. Keep it really, doesn't have to be big stuff, little stuff. Journaling is a really good one. So people keep a gratitude journal, and you just write 3 things down every day that you're grateful for. And then make it 3 different things the next day, and 3 different things the next day, and 3 different things the next day. It's a stacking process. The more you can stack gratitude, the more full you feel, the more abundant you feel, the better headspace you're in, the more appreciative you are, the calmer you are, the better you are able to deal with these slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and the doo-doo hitting the fan on occasion. It just gives you, it allows you to feel like you are more in control of your life. You're reinforcing your own personal power of choice. Because what you focus on is what you feel. You focus on is what you experience. What's wrong is always what's available, and so is what's right.
Mm-hmm.
But we tend to have habitual patterns of focus. The question I would have for everybody is, what's yours? Yeah, we all sometimes focus on the good stuff and sometimes focus on not so good stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
But where's the seesaw? Is it level? Is it tilted one way or the other?
Between gratitude and ingratitude, or gratitude and bitterness?
Gratitude and not necessarily, no, not bitterness, but it's more, is your focus on what's wrong or what's right, what you've already got or what's missing, what you don't have, that type of thing. So it's called what if, or up spiral and down spiral thinking.
Okay.
So you get up in the morning and you're driving to work, and the conversation that you have in your head on the way to work, or sometimes out loud, is, Oh, I hate Mondays. Oh, Mondays are crap because it's going to be that flurry of calls first thing in the morning, and the diary's already full, and there's going to be loads of people we need to fit in, and we haven't got enough time, and there's probably somebody's going to call in sick, and then we're going to have the whole surgical list.
And Andy, can you stop, mate? You're lowering the tone of the whole thing, and it's just taking me down and down and down.
And it does, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Often, the Mondays turn out that way in our minds.
And the flip to that is the up spiral thinking, which is, hey, Monday, awesome, start a new week. What if I have a great week? What if I get in this morning and everybody's on tip-top form? What if everything I need to know, to communicate, to understand, to express comes to me easily and effortlessly? What if all my clients really appreciate my expertise, my insight, my thinking? What if I really enjoy my consults? What if I get a lunch break? What an extraordinary experience that would be. I get a lunch break. What if I have more than enough? Yeah. What if I have more than enough time to make my phone calls and do everything? What if the team pulls together brilliantly? And do you know what? If something unexpected comes in, we'll handle it because we're a great team. How much better is that day already?
Yeah.
Before we've even got there.
That's
that again,
the negative thinking will never allow you to recognize that things have gone well. Your mind will think there'll be an emergency, something will come in, someone will phone up unexpectedly, and that'll then reinforce your mind. I was right to think that because look, there you go.
Yeah. See, I told you it'd be crap. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the flip side of that is absolutely, hey, okay, let's deal with it. Who's handling it? Let's go for it. We're going to nail this. We're going to get this. And you get to the end of the day and go, do you know what? That was a crazy day, but we did a great job. Thank you so much for what you did with Mrs. Jones. And then you can give that specific feedback.
Yeah.
And it's the stacking process. Again, that was my habitual conversation with myself every day driving to work in the car. Did the day always pan out that way? No. But was I in a better headspace to deal with it? Yes. Is it something that I regularly coach everybody on? 100%. Doesn't matter what sphere of work they're in or life they're in. Taught my daughter that from when she was tiny.
Have you got a trick to take the negative, the down spiral? That's very much a life thing, isn't it? It's a burden of being human. Have you got a trick or a trigger or a move to get somebody out of that, to recognize, oh God, I'm sounding negative today. How do I move away from this? Have you got a tip on that one?
Absolutely.
Go on.
If you want to change, because this is about emotional states, because if that's where you're at, you are in a very particular emotional state. And I could give you 50 quid if you could describe exactly what that person looks like and sounds like. You win the 50 quid. It's not difficult. We've all done it. Some of us do it more than others. So if you want to change your emotional state really quickly and change your focus, the quickest way to do that is through changing your physiology, which is what you're doing with your body. Because if you're in that lousy state, the chances are that you're a bit slumped and you're probably, your focus is downwards, your head's down. If we're talking, it's the vocal quality's not brilliant. So if you want to change that, make a radical change in your physiology. If you're sitting down, stand up. Move around, have a drink of water. This is going to sound really silly. Just grin for 30 seconds, preferably in the mirror, because you look even more stupid doing that. It's really hard to maintain that misery when you at yourself in the mirror, feeling like an absolute wally, because how you use your body changes your biochemistry, which also influences your emotional state. And it's very hard to feel miserable when you're going like this. But a radical change in your physiology, actually shoulders back, head up, change the talk, use a different tone of voice like this, as opposed to it's all crap and it's horrible and I'm really miserable and this is rubbish and that's rubbish and it's not fair, and which we all do. I do it myself as well. I'm not saying I don't. I absolutely do this at times. The key thing is catch yourself in it and go, do you know what? Literally sometimes set a timer. I have 5 minutes to have my pity party for one. Which nobody else wants to come to, by the way. Nobody else wants to come. Okay. It's a terrible party. Everybody else has left. Give yourself the 5 minutes or the 15 minutes to feel lousy and then snap out of it. And it is literally snap out of it. It's get up, do something different, jump up and down. Again, if you jump up and down, pump your arms in the air, total change in physiology, changes how you feel. And again, so your body is massively impactful on how you feel. And if you want to break out of a funk or something like that, do that in the moment. Okay. The more radically you change it, the more quickly you'll change the emotional state. Really quick.
Yeah. And I found actually, I've done that. I've done that before. And what I've done occasionally is just to laugh out loud for 30 seconds. And that has two great benefits. One is it lifts you. It can't help but lift you. And the other thing is I always get a spare seat when I'm on the train.
Yeah. There's a brilliant one, Julian. And that's a fabulous exercise because it also changes your breathing. Because again, we're miserable and depressed. We're not breathing with our diaphragm.
You're slightly hypoxic,
with chest breathing. Yeah, 100%. So we're looking at part of this whole sort of lifting up and shoulders back and head up and everything else is that allows you to open your chest and use your diaphragm to breathe as you should do. And laughing absolutely does that. It's brilliant. Love that one.
Yeah, someone told me to do it. I can't remember who. A few years back, and I do it from time to time. I don't do it every day, certainly, but I do it when I'm starting to get into that real funk that you mentioned. And it is.
One of our guests just to do it, didn't they?
I may have been actually, maybe one of our guests, but it really does work. It's not even 30 seconds, about 10 seconds. And it's absolutely impossible. Usually I'll do it, and then after 4 or 5 seconds, I find I actually am laughing. I'm just not fake anymore.
Yeah. No, and laughter therapy is definitely one of the things that's out there for these situations. And again, I don't want to be, so some people might say this is far too simplistic. What about if you're clinically depressed? What about if you've got some really serious stuff going on? And I'm not saying that you do that for 5 seconds and your life's perfect. It's all fine. It's about in the moment changing that state. And that then reminds you that you have a choice about how you feel. Yeah. So we can choose to continue to feel upset and miserable. And sometimes actually, do you know what? We want to be angry. And there are times when, what you don't want is someone to come along and go, do you know what? Hang on, you teach your stuff. Why don't you just change your state? And say, I'll change your state. It's like, sometimes you want to be angry because you're angry or you're upset because you're upset. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not hurting anybody else in the process. Yeah, doing that, but making sure that you understand that's for a finite period of time and that it is not healthy and helpful to continue in that space, and that you can change it. And it's like going to the gym and training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you get, the quicker you can do it. And you can develop, as you said, you've got your laughing, so many different ways that you can interrupt that pattern of negativity, if you like, or that thinking. And for me, I used to make it a game in these situations. Did it with my daughter when she was small, and when children are frustrated and getting upset and what have you. Okay, how fast can I make her laugh? Because she didn't get upset very much, bless her. She was a really good kid. But in those situations, how fast can I make her laugh? Here's the other thing. It meant that I wasn't getting annoyed and irritated and angry with her, getting frustrated because she was doing what I didn't want her to do. It made me go, I have to be creative. I have to be playful. I have to be fun to get another human being to change their emotional state. You have to do something that's going to shift it significantly. So it was, how ridiculous can I be? I'm rolling around like a puppy, or am I barking? And fine at home in the supermarket, you get some looks, but it works. Sometimes the security guard asks you to leave, but hey, it helps with that creativity and the understanding that you've got lots of different ways, and you'll find ones that really work for you, like, say, the laughter thing for you. Like for me, that's out loud, up spiral thinking thing that I do. And just actually, it becomes easier and easier to snap out of these things, to give yourself a different choice. And again, the more you practice, the better you get. The challenge is that the more you practice the negativity, the better you get at it as well.
Yeah, then they will become.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But you say that.
No.
But
Suppose.
they do become facilitatory pathways, don't they?
Yeah.
Either
absolutely
way
do.
you're looking. And that is that neuro-linguistic programming. What do you
Yeah, I mean, it is to an extent in that these are neural pathways, and there is certainly some vocal and verbal linguistic link up in those at times, yes. But again, it's a form of conditioning. We're effectively training ourselves, and we're trained by the world around us. It's a bit like the news, especially at the moment. What that trains us for is fear, negativity, anxiety, concern, lack, conflict. One of the many reasons that I don't watch the news and I don't listen to the news, and don't read the news, and haven't done for God knows how many years, more than 10 years. Like just about enough to keep up so I understand what's going on, and I just about know who the Prime Minister is. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world that gets reported as that I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Which is not to say
there's
that
nothing we can do about it. Nothing's going to affect you directly. If it is, it'll affect you out of your control. It's so easy to get into a habit of doom scrolling. And I've managed to shake the habit now because I realized I was doing it. I had someone talk about it. I thought, hang on, that's what I do.
Doom scrolling, that's where you look at picture after picture after picture, isn't it?
Or news feed after news feed after news feed.
Yeah. Or just working your way through a CPD certificate from the 60-second CPD.
Oh, I've got a CPD certificate.
Have you?
Yeah, look.
Is it full of pictures?
It's full of pictures.
Oh, should we doom scroll it?
Look, there we go. It says,
Oops.
Certificate of Zen Greenness.
Oh.
And there's a little at the BSAVA Congress and Expo on, and there's a bonsai tree, not one of mine, I'm afraid, but a bonsai tree, just to give that Zen feeling. Well, you can get into your snowboarding, but I thought I'd show a picture of skiing, which is much better than snowboarding.
I think we've discussed that picture before, Julian.
Yeah, we're not going to discuss it again. And look, there's my Telecaster.
Nice.
And do you know what instrument that is above it?
Is that a file?
It's a mandolin.
A mandolin?
A mandolin. And I made that.
Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
Hey, Andy, let's see how he gets out of the last picture.
So I made that mandolin.
Yeah.
I can't play
ignoring
it
at the moment.
And now I heard that you were learning to drive a helicopter.
Oh, you're being too kind.
Is it one of those?
I'm not in the army, so they haven't let me out of Chinook yet. I'm flying something that's rather smaller than that, and with just the one,
rounded bit at the top.
One Robinson R22.
Okay, so they're the little bubble canopies, aren't they?
Yeah, the two person job. Yeah, which is so much fun.
I've flown one just in one of those red letter days you get, and I got so fired up. I almost signed up for the next 10 lessons, and then I went back, and fortunately my wife had a rolled up newspaper to hit me over the head. But I will do it one day, so I'm dead envious of you.
I can heartily recommend it. And again, when it comes to that sort of lifelong learning, challenging your comfort zone and trying new things, again, there's a lot obviously around about dementia and cognitive dysfunction and all these things, and one of the best ways of helping to mitigate that is continuing to learn. And that's where obviously CPD is a great thing. That's that continual professional development. We should be continuing to develop in other areas of our life as well. Hobbies, pastimes, whatever it happens to be, whether it's musical, whether it's sport, whether it's embroidery, crochet, baking, cooking, reading, whatever it happens to be. There's infinite myriad of things that we can do. But that one for me is major challenge of comfort zone, because it's something that's completely different from anything that I've done before. I've done a bit of flying, solo glider pilot wings when I was at school in the cadet force, but a helicopter is totally different from a fixed wing. So it's a whole new skill set. I have to say, if you're a drummer, I think that would definitely be an advantage, because you've got to do different things with all your limbs at the same time. So I think a really good drummer would have an advantage there. I currently don't play the drums, but yeah, it's, again, just that taking off in a helicopter, and it's not like you've got to gather up some speed. to in a plane to get up to speed and then lumber off the runway. It's just you're there and you hover and then you can just ascend.
Yeah. I've got a friend who flies a helicopter, and she took me out once years back in a helicopter, and she took off sideways. And I said, that's interesting. Why did you do that? And she said, because I can.
Yeah. Yes.
You also did have you done auto rotation? Is it auto rotation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The thing that makes you fill your pants. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big part of the last few lessons. I'm 22 hours in, I think now. And so, yeah, doing advanced auto rotations at the moment. So looking at different rates of descent, different speeds of descent, different glide paths. There is still that moment of weight, the tummy weightlessness, and definitely some puckering happens.
I should explain to our listeners, because not all of them are pilots or have flown helicopters, or in fact are vets for that matter, but auto rotation is where the helicopter engine stops. And as most people would expect, the engine stops, the whirly thing stops going round, and the helicopter falls out of the sky. Except it's not quite like that, is it, Andy?
No, because if the whirly thing at the top did stop going around, he would fall like a stone and there would be no coming back from it. So you're right, it's a simulated engine failure. And in that situation, what you're doing is doing a controlled descent much faster than normal to make sure that your rotor still needs to be going around at the correct speed, because if it goes around too fast, it can't cope and the rotor arms are off and then you crash and die. If it drops too low, then you've got zero lift and then the helicopter falls out of the sky and you would crash and die. So what you're looking for is the bit in the middle where you are able to have a controlled landing and walk away.
I.e. not crash and die. Option 3.
Quite a simple helicopter flying, really, isn't it?
Option 3. Which
Very simple.
Absolutely.
Too slow, crash and die. Too fast, crash and die. There we go.
So it's the Goldilocks of helicopter auto rotating.
It very much, yes.
Yeah.
You've got to be at you've got to have the right speed. You've got to identify somewhere that actually can put the helicopter down safely, which means not landing it in the middle of the motorway or on someone's house or what have you. It's can you find the suitable patch of ground that you can actually get to, which is what I'm starting to learn at the moment. It's really interesting, and
Well, you're always welcome to land in our field.
That's very kind. That's absolutely very kind.
If I know you're coming, I'll go out with a tin of white paint and paint an H on it.
His name's Andy. Why would you paint H? It's like Harry. It's Andy.
For Harry the helicopter.
Hey,
Harold.
land here. Land here. I don't know. There we go. What can we say?
I think we can only say thank you, can't we?
I think we can. We can only say thank you. Actually, I nearly forgot something.
Oh yes. What did you?
I nearly forgot my empty mug.
Mhm.
But the other thing I nearly forgot was to say thank you to Andy and thank you to both our listeners for sticking with us again.
And Helen Field is one of them, Andy. So say hi to
Oh.
Helen. Hi, Helen. She's
Hello,
lovely.
Helen.
She's
Well, we're going to name drop Helen Field, are we?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
we all know Helen. She's the loveliest person ever and one of the
Absolutely.
main stalwarts for the Congress.
Absolute legend. Absolute legend. Love Helen to pieces.
Well, hope you're enjoying this, Helen. And don't forget, be like Helen. Click like, subscribe, and if you've got any feedback that you want to give us at Veterinary Ramblings, then drop us a line and we'll see what we can do. Andy Green. Sorry you're not the wing commander, Andy Green, but I've enjoyed my evening all the same. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's a joy chatting to you, and I'm pretty sure I rambled quite well.
I think you
There's a lot of
rambled like a good.
lot of rambling going on.
I think we all rambled very
hopefully
well.
Some useful stuff in there.
I think there was. I think some very valuable stuff in there indeed, and I think our listeners will get a lot out of that. I did, certainly. So,
Yes.
Andy Green, may your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Thank you very much, and to you.
Cheers. And to think that we started doing this and we all had glasses of gin or wine and stuff like that, and now look at us like three old men supping our cocoa before tea
I've nursed
time.
my coffee throughout the whole of this.
There we go. There we go. That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Andy.
That's a pleasure.